Hi everyone, it's Lorraine back again with segment number 2. Tonight we're going to be making a lovely dessert. It's called Stovetop Apple Crisp, otherwise known as Apple Betty, and sometimes Apple Crumble. So it's a really quick dessert that is absolutely lovely, and if you're in a fix and you need to make a dessert for somebody because your husband's coming home or whatever, then this is the perfect dessert for you. We can even substitute blueberries in some case and make the same kind of a dessert, but with various types of fruit. But for tonight, we'll focus on the apples. So we're going to turn the frying pan on. We're going to turn it on to about medium heat, or in our case, that will be 6 or 7. And we're going to take 2 tablespoons of butter, put that in the frying pan there. And then we're going to take 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, and those items are going to melt together and get mixed up. And while we're waiting for the butters and the sugars to mix together, we can talk about the kind of apples that you might want to use for this particular recipe. Typically you can use any of your favorite apples, but we're using Honeycrisp apples today. If you like something that's a little bit tartar, then there's always the Granny Smith apples. But as I said, just use any kind you like. Alright, now that our butter and our brown sugars have been melted up nicely, now it's time to put in the rest of the ingredients. So we'll have 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. We'll pour that in. There we go. That's the first. Then we've got a teaspoon of vanilla. That's 1 teaspoon, not a tablespoon. Continuously just mixing it all up. You have to be careful when you cook sugar, because the problem with that is it's very flammable and it can burn to the bottom of your pan or your pot, whatever you're cooking in, and then it flavors things not in a preferred way. Now we're putting in a teaspoon of cinnamon with a half a teaspoon of salt. We'll mix that all in. Starting to smell really good, and as you can see, my puppy here thinks it smells so good that he'd like to give it a try. Hey, that smells pretty good, eh, Troops? This is Trooper. He's my buddy. All right, now for the oatmeal. This is going to be your topping, obviously, that you put on top of your apples. And we just mix that in. Make sure that we're coating all of the oatmeal. Eventually you want to get to the point where you've got a nice crumbly mixture. See? This boy here, he approves. And you can see that the flavors and the oatmeal are soaking up all the various colors. It's turning into a nice golden brown. I'm just going to turn that up a little bit. I had to turn it down because the butters and the sugars were starting to cook a little bit too much. Now Trooper's asking please if he could have a little taste test. And there we go. So we're just trying to go for a nice crispy crumbly mixture. That looks like it's doing pretty well. Alright, so here's our plate. We're just taking our oatmeal crumbly mixture and spread it on top of the plate. And spread it out on your plate thinly so it can cool off nicely. If you leave it in a big pile, it won't cool off in an even manner. Okay, you're going to be using the frying pan again. For now, we'll turn it off, but let's just spread this out just as I've discussed. That can set aside to cool. And in the meantime, what we're going to do is start preparing our apples. These apples have already been washed. So at this point, we're going to core them and cut the apples up into small pieces. Okay, so we want to use 4 apples of whatever kind you choose, and we're going to cube them up into small pieces, and one of them just bit the dust. We'll just carry on. Trooper will come over and taste test these apples for us. He loves apples. ahead, we're getting there. Okay, so we're about halfway finished our apples, so let's move the frying pan over to the element. And we need to put in 2 tablespoons of butter. And we're just going to let that melt for a little bit over the warmth that was generated from the initial cooking. And we'll continue on with our apples while that butter is melting. Okay, our apples are all cubed up, well, as close as cubed up as I can get. And we'll throw those into the frying pan with the butter. And there we go. All in there. Get our mixing spoon up and just get them evenly distributed, soaking up some of that nice butter. Nothing like butter. Much better than margarine. Now that we've put our apples in, we'll put in 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. And next comes the cinnamon. There we go. We'll mix that all up. The lovely thing about this dessert is that you can make it for an individual serving, or you can double it up so that you can have a family-sized dessert as well. But it's easy to make, and it takes such a short amount of time. You save yourself the baking time, and it just smells wonderful. It fills that kitchen up with that happy apple pie aroma. Alright, so now we're going to put the lid on top of the frying pan. And this is where we let our apples simmer for about 10 minutes till they get to be a nice soft texture. And you can just smell that aroma just wafting up into your senses. Absolutely delightful and delectable, and a healthy dessert too. And now we're back after 10 minutes, and if you take a look at these apples, they're looking nice and soft and very, very fragrant. I'm stumbling over my words because it smells so good, I'm drooling just a little bit. As you can see, now it's going to be a decadent night. At this point, we're just finishing up the last 5 minutes without the lid. It's not simmering away. We're just letting the sauce thicken up a little bit. That's the brown sugar, syrup, the cinnamon, along with the apples. And it's pretty much done. And as you are stirring, you can feel that the apples have a very soft texture, and they're not going to be hard to crunch down on while you are enjoying your dessert. So I'll just turn this stove off, and we're going to get a pie plate so that we can put it all together. Okay. Alright, so here we go. We're going to put our apples into the pie plate here, and then we'll evenly distribute the apples. There we go. Make sure you get a lot of that sauce in there, because that's what spices up your dessert. There we go. So now we're going to take our topping. So as you can see, it's hardened up quite a bit, so it gives it that nice crunchy texture. That's where you'll taste your maple a little bit more. It'll enhance the flavors. So we're going to sprinkle that on top of our apples. Okay, all around on all the apples so that none of them miss this beautiful topping. There we are. Spread that all over top. And as you can see, Trooper is ready to taste test. He can hardly wait. He is salivating all over the place, and I just heard a little gurgle escape from his mouth. And voila, there's your stovetop apple crisp, apple Betty, and apple crumble. Now who wants to give this a try? Look at that. We're going to scoop a nice big healthy serving into this bowl here. So the thing I like about these dessert bowls is that they are quite large and deep, so that it's a bit hidden about how much you're getting into your bowl. So you get a large, healthy portion. Yum, yum. So now what we like to do with something like this, because it's all healthy, you have to just cheat a little bit, especially if you've had a good day or you deserve it. Always reward yourself. We could throw some whipped cream on that, or some French vanilla ice cream, or you know what, even just a little bit of cream. We used to do that when we were quite young. We just put a little bit of cream around that, and that's a nice treat too. So there you are. Bon appetit. We'll see you next time.